Welcome to You Know His Name, a 007 podcast. I'm your host, Tony Artiga, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, John Morgan and Rick Rodriguez. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great, Rick. Tony, how are you
Golly
doing,
gee whiz,
Tony?
wow.
Dear listener, I asked before we started, I did ask Rick we need a little more energy from you. And you know what? He's coming in with the thunder.
They don't need to know.
I loved it.
Don't pull back the curtain.
But these are the behind the scenes tidbits that people want to know about.
Fuck them.
My friend. All right, well.
Can't let everybody know what's going on behind the curtain.
Everybody knows.
Step forward.
Well, guys, I'm really excited to actually talk to you guys about this movie. When I actually fun little fact, huh?
Are you?
Yeah, I am, because you want to know something? At the end of the day, talking to you guys about any of these movies has always been a lot of fun, even if the movie itself is a little And as actually fun fact is that when John and I first talked about him coming onto the podcast, he suggested this as the first episode because, people don't really talk about this movie very much. I kind of countered, maybe we should start with something a little stronger, like GoldenEye, which he agreed. But but Spectre had to be the second episode because John, you're right. This is what nobody talks about this movie. It's so smack in the middle. It's not bad enough of the Bond. It's not bad enough for the Bond films to be to warrant a memorably bad status like a Moonraker or something like that, or a Die Another Day. But it's also so mid that there's little exceptional about it. But we're gonna get into it.
So stumble into this conversation already.
That's good stuff. So we're talking about we're talking about Spectre today, and it's a movie that we have a lot of, for the most part, we're all kind of meh on. But it's also a movie that doesn't get talked about enough in the Bond canon. So Rick, why don't you give us a synopsis on Spectre, Daniel Craig's fourth outing in his Bond role?
Sure, yeah. So basic gist of it is, it's definitely post Skyfall with, Judi Dench having passed away in the previous film, and with a new M. So it's kind of, what Skyfall set up was basically okay, now all the pieces are where the Bond tradition, the traditional Bond stuff pieces are now set. It's the office of M looks like the old office, and Moneypenny is the secretary, and all this stuff. And this one begins with a quote, "The dead are alive," and immediately opens on a parade of Day of the Dead, specifically on a big giant Day of the Dead skeleton with a top hat, which I don't know if this is confirmed. Is that with a cigar in its mouth? Is that supposed to be a reference to Teehee from Live and Let Die? Does anyone know?
It gave me those vibes. It definitely gave me those vibes.
I looked at it. I was like, cool, Day of the Dead. I'm like, wait a minute. It looks a little bit like Teehee. I mean, obviously as a skeleton.
Yeah.
But, the top hat and the cigar, I was wondering. And then as a side note, there's a lot of little, I think, homages to past Bond movies in this movie, actually.
Very much so.
But anyway,
what is the synopsis?
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all I have. It's done. No, the basic gist is it starts with Bond on a solo mission. This is the pre-credit action sequence. It's shot to emulate a one take thing, and basically culminates in Bond, as Bond does, attempting to kill someone. And you hear the gist of a conversation through a window of a couple of bad jabronis saying, good thing we blow up stadium. And of course, that gives you the sign that Bond should really kill those guys.
They're speaking Spanish, by the way.
I know, but
they're in Mexico.
The cliche.
They're speaking Italian. Yeah,
no one knows.
The character's Italian.
I thought it was Yiddish, but the cliche for me, the cliche Bond villain is always Russian. Sorry, Russia. But anyway, either way, the attempt to kill the guy ensues, explosions, chase, and a pretty spectacular fight on a helicopter. A helicopter shows up in the middle of a fucking big giant parade square in which everyone clears out
Right in the middle of
helicopter,
Mexico City.
Yeah, to let a guy get on the chopper. And then, of course, Bond chases him onto the chopper, and they have a big giant fight inside the chopper as it's spinning and doing donuts and all this shit. And he succeeds in killing the guy, and then he pulls up, but he sees a ring on the guy's hand and pulls it off, which has an octopus tentacle thing on it, and that ensues the mystery of, well, what is that? What's this mysterious ring with this mysterious symbol on it? And that kind of kickstarts the movie. And you find out that it was a mission that Bond was actually not supposed to be on. He's getting reamed by M, played by Ray Fiennes. Moneypenny is like, oh, you're in trouble and all this shit. And she goes to assist him because Bond is being very coy on why he went on this particular mission. And
it's not really an official mission, though.
No, it's not exactly. He essentially, went on his own. Yeah,
he goes off the record.
Right.
Well, it should be mentioned that, of course, it's an unofficial off the record mission, but given to him by M, by his
while he's on double secret probation.
He's not allowed to go anywhere except if he wants to.
Double O. By the way, Double O probation sounds like a fantastic parody title. By the way,
double secret probation. That is funny.
All right. So yeah,
that's it.
No. I'll quicken it up. I'm getting a little too detailed, I guess. But
that's why we love you, Rick.
Basically, you find out that before M died, she left a little recording, as people do, to let him know, like, hey, by the way, if I die, find this bad dude and kill him. And that's who Bond was hunting in Mexico City. So when he does, though, he's still kind of not done. He wants to find out what exactly this guy was connected to. He essentially kind of gets the crew, he gets Q to help him out, while also deceiving Q and stealing a car for his purposes of travel, and having Moneypenny kind of be his mole, as she says. She's against it, but she does it. And you end up, long story short, finding out this guy's connected to a big organization called
Special Executive Counterterrorism, Revenge, and Extortion.
Only they never say that. So it's just Spectre, as in a specter of someone's eye. I would have rather they did. I wish that was the name of the movie. But anyway, and you end up, long story short, to really wrap it up, it results in Bond finding the head of this organization, which of course is a reboot, remake, throwback to the old Spectre organization of the old films, specifically the Connery years. And of course, the return in terms of, the movie lore of Bond, the return of Blofeld, rebooted, remade, played by Christoph Waltz. And essentially it ends up with Blofeld being the architect of all of Bond's misery, where everything from the previous Craig films was a big, giant, cosmic, brilliant plan by Blofeld to ruin Bond's life over revenge again.
Because his daddy liked him more. Because
his dad liked him more.
Turned out he was his surrogate.
Yeah, that's a culmination in that. You have the return of Mr. White from Christina Royale and Quantum of Solace. He has been poisoned with thallium. But he's really not such a bad guy. You know why? Because he has a daughter, and she's pretty, and Bond falls in love with her. And she's going to help Bond in this mission to stop Spectre. And there's intrigue with MI6 being folded into MI5, which Ray Fiennes playing M is against. And that's there's a bad character played by Andrew Scott of Sherlock fame. He played Moriarty, playing at first a guy who's just like, I'm kind of against agents. So they're doing that thing again, are 00 agents obsolete, which was started in Skyfall. And of course, you end up finding out that this guy is working for Spectre, and the whole scheme is to get Spectre in control of all, or at least with supreme access to all intelligence so that he can basically stop anyone trying to thwart them and can keep running their illegal businesses, which do range from everything from drugs, human trafficking, gun sales, nuclear threats, and all this shit. They are the Amazon of terrorism. And so he's a bad guy. Everyone's a bad guy except for Bond and his old team, like Moneypenny, Q, and M. And it ends in a big fight in London. So I guess we can get into more details on that.
Yeah. That was good. That was good.
I like that.
Broke
Rick.
it down.
I will say a lot does happen in the movie.
Yeah, and yet somehow I was bored.
Because there's
You're bored for long stretches
we
of
can
it.
get into this. There's a lot of you see it coming a mile away stuff.
Yeah. So just to wrap up the synopsis, Rick, thank you for that wonderful synopsis.
That was wonderful.
It was fantastic.
As a
We also want to
performance.
throw out there that Lea Seydoux is in this film as well. She plays Madeline Swan.
as Mr. Whitehall's daughter.
She's like 15
Absolutely.
years
Not
younger
Whitehall,
than Daniel
Jesus,
Craig.
Mr. White. What is his name? God damn it.
John, you mean to tell me that the main Bond female lead is younger than the guy who plays Bond by at least a decade?
By at least
Perish the thought.
Mr. White. That's his name. Sorry.
I mean, listen. After View to a Kill and Stacey Sutton, I'm totally fine with anything else that this franchise does. Thank you for that. Again, thank you for that synopsis, Rick. So we're gonna give our overall impressions of the movie. I'm gonna start if it's okay with you folks. Spectre. When I first saw it, I was extremely disappointed because I think, unlike my two compatriots, I actually really love the movie Skyfall. It's actually one of my favorite Bond films, and I was very much in love with the style. I love the throwbacks of the old films. I really thought Silva was a very, very strong villain. Loved Javier Bardem in the role. So the weird thing about Spectre is that it was the first Bond movie where I kind of got excited about it in the way that I only really get excited about like the Marvel films or the Star Wars films, where it's like, oh man, my fanboy love for this franchise getting tickled. So with the idea that shit, the movie's name, it's called Spectre. We're finally gonna see Spectre after all this time. Christoph Waltz, they didn't reveal it in the casting, but it was pretty obvious he was playing Blofeld. So the idea of Christoph Waltz as Blofeld was really, really great, awesome to me. And then the movie happened, and I didn't know quite what to think. There was some stuff that I liked, and then some stuff that I'm like didn't like. I still prefer this movie over Quantum of Solace. I think that one is my bottom pick for the Craig films. But for me personally, my biggest problem with this movie is that it didn't quite know what kind of a Bond film it wanted to be. Because there were a lot of moments where it's going for this sort of really hard spy thriller vibe, and then they throw in something really silly that would be appropriate in like the Roger Moore films, and it's like it just did there a lot of it didn't work, and it felt disjointed all over the place. And it's a movie that, even though I enjoy it more and more whenever I see it, I think for me it's the exact middle point of all the Bond films. It just needlessly complicates very simple plot points, which we're going to get into in the bigger discussion. But that's my overall impression of the movie. Having watched it the first time, having rewatched it, I probably like it a little. I think I'm not so much that I like it more. The issues just bother me less as time goes on. But I want to hear from you guys. So, John, why don't you take it away on your overall impressions of Spectre?
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Spectre, but
that's getting cut out.
Yeah, it's an acronym, so it's technically.
John, what are your impressions of Spectre?
It's okay. It's one of the better Daniel Craig movies.
Awesome. So I'll go. Okay.
I was surprised coming back around to it because I only had seen it once before in theaters, so this is my second time watching it. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first time around, and I kind of appreciated more like the sense of humor that was prevalent, and yet I found it difficult to balance out the tones at times. Like the humor did feel a little forced.
Yep.
And so that was kind of distracting, and yet also I was surprised that with Sam Mendes behind the camera again, he's someone who has a really strong visual sense. I think a lot of people agree, and he's a very good visual storyteller. And we saw that, with the predecessor to this in Skyfall, and he's good with the camera. But in this one, I thought in this one, as good looking as it was, it really lacked scope and scale that I remember from so many other James Bond movies, and like that I kind of like, recognize as like a visual trademark of the franchise. Really weak aerial photography, just not any really interesting, like, we're going to like some exotic places and just like not enough to open up my imagination to like where we're going. Like he just wastes off shots and scenery like it's nothing. And maybe there's some credit to be paid to that because he makes it look so effortless. But like, for example, watching Blofeld's lair explode was one of the most confusing and awkward moments in the movie for me, because there was not a good look at what the fuck was going on when all these charges were going off.
And it's the same color as the desert.
Yeah, so
it's not really distinguished as this like opulent, exotic thing in the middle of the Sahara. So I think that's a little failure of design.
There were a lot of these weird art direction and production design choices and visual choices that I felt like threw me off, and I think definitely prevented me from enjoying the movie when I saw it in theaters, just seeing it on a large screen and everything. Also, the story is like fucked. And I was really upset with deciding to use Léa Seydoux as the Bond girl when they had Monica Bellucci, who is more Daniel Craig's age, and if you ask me, would have been a much better choice as far as being the character profile needed to carry an interesting relationship between Bond and the Bond girl. Because she was actually, and I want to talk more about it, she's married to the guy he assassinates in the opening of the film and creates problems for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk more about it. But like, I do feel like that the story in this one leads a lot to be desired. But I really did like Christoph Waltz. I liked Dave Bautista. And I really enjoyed the action in some scenes, and I wanted more action. I felt like that it was pretty absent from the movie for the most part. So I felt like this one was kind of middling in terms of entertainment value compared to other Bond movies, where you kind of go having these clear-cut expectations of what you're going to get out of it, like in terms of like the level of action, sex, violence, cool gadgets, cool cars, exotic locales. This movie just kind of middled that and was just like, no, this is a direct sequel. And at the same time, it's not. It's a kind of a reboot, interquel chapter. As I was built up to like say like, oh, he'll be back, and it's like Daniel Craig's gonna do one more of these and fuck off. Is he really gonna come back? I don't know. It just left me feeling confused by the end of the movie about what to feel, because Léa Seydoux is way too young for him, and
that's an issue going since fuck.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the age difference.
That's not even just Bond. Like,
yeah, that's just an issue. But I think Léa Seydoux is a well-rounded enough character that it worked for me. But we'll get into that later. Rick, why don't you give us your overall impressions of Spectre?
It's not too far off from what you guys have said. There's something off about the movie. And having rewatched it, I still can't quite pinpoint it. I think the specifics John said I would agree with some, not with all. But there's a truth to the notion that there's a little, I guess maybe I'm in a general sense, I agree, because it's like there's something very, I hate repeating this, but yeah, like, because I know I said this about Goldeneye prior. There's something very routine about this one. And I think it actually opens up the problem overall I have with the Craig ones, which is something that actually most people like about them, is that I think the attempt to give a lot of characterization and gravitas to the franchise in the Craig years has led it to being a drag. And I'm not saying that in the sense of, oh, I don't want Bond to be, a deep character, or I don't want the series to have depth. It's more like a miscalculation of the degrees to which they've done it and the choices they've made. It's to the point that I think it's kind of lessened the mystique and the power of Bond as a character and in the flow of their movies. And I think, to me, overall, Sam Mendes is to blame, or at least, everyone following either that lead or everyone agreeing that this is the way to do it. And I feel like Spectre is kind of a culmination of the lesser aspects of Skyfall. I mean, I don't want to do shit on Skyfall or anything like that, but if there were issues with Skyfall, this one really doubles down on them in trying to make everything a very almost this operatic, doomful tragedy of
writings on the wall.
The writings on, yes, yeah.
One of the worst Bond songs ever, but we'll get into that in another.
At least there's women in the opening credit, in the dance again, or in the credits sequence again.
Oh God, we got to get to that. Yeah, wrap up your thoughts.
Oh, sorry. I'll hurry up.
Whoa. Rick's got more to say. We want to hear what Rick has to say.
Because I guess let's reveal spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, why the fuck are you listening to this? It turns out Blofeld is his fucking brother.
Kind of.
Stepbrother. And
kind of brother.
It's like do we just become best friends?
I wanted that so bad. I wanted them to connect.
They get along at the end.
I'm sorry. Oh, you hurt your face.
You're my bro. They hug it out on the
okay.
They hug it out on that bridge at the end.
It's foggy.
Yeah, it turns out, and like I said before, it turns out, Blofeld is mad at him because his dad liked Bond more, like James more, and he's just very driven, clearly, because he started a multi-fucking trillion-dollar terrorist organization that is bent on true world economic domination.
No. Its primary focus is to fund the destruction of James Bond's life.
That's okay. There you go. That just adds to my point that he really fucking hates this guy.
Yeah, but it's like he has a megalomaniacal industry, he's running the Illuminati basically.
See, that's the thing that because Rick, you're 100% correct at that. I mean, that plot twist is what the fuck, and I think
it's just too much. I think that's maybe where the movie just sags, because then it's the movie's not even over. That's not the climax. That's just a little bit over the middle of the movie, and that's the destruction. It leads to the destruction of Blofeld's lair in the Sahara, and then there's a whole climax of trying to stop this computer system from taking over the intelligence system of British intelligence, essentially, and I think the world. And
it's the dumbest shit. It's so contrived when they explain that.
It's a MacGuffin plot. That's fine. It's just that it sags dramatically because you feel they're related, and instead of giving the charge that usually occurs in a reveal like that, it just sags the movie of oh, that's what it is. Okay, well, here we go with the big fight and everything.
See, the thing is, I think to me it would have been the simple. I think that there's a way for the filmmakers and the writers have had their cake and eat it too. I actually have zero problem with the fact that Spectre ties all the past movies together. I have
In
zero
terms
problem.
of events, fine, but in
Yeah.
terms of him being related to Bond, or not really, you know what I mean? God damn it! Like
I'm
they
getting
grew up
to that,
together.
Rick. I'm getting to that.
No, I'm going to interrupt you a lot.
No, don't, because I'm gonna kill you over this fucking screen.
Does Zoom
In
have that
jest, we
feature?
love. Can you imagine? Zoom, please force choke guest Rick Rodriguez. Like, you know. But no, you're absolutely right. The there was a way to have their cake and eat it too, and the whole them being related thing was just a step that was way too much. I mean, first off, it reeks of Austin Powers and Goldmember. Like, Austin Powers parodies Bond. Bond does not parody Austin Powers. That's number one. I will say I was less bothered by it rewatching it this time because I got the sense more that they were trying to go for a thing of, I mean, well, when Bond parents died, obviously he needs to have a guardian. So it was more of a resentment that my father preferred this child that wasn't his over me. So, which that in of itself is fine. I still wouldn't have gone down that road anyway. To me, it was, but ultimately, it's the much simpler route would have just been Bond is responsible for the fall of Quantum. Bond is responsible for Lashif's death, Dominic Green's death. So to me, just have Blofeld literally make Spectre out of the ashes of Quantum, and his plot for revenge isn't like some contrived thing of we're brothers. It's like you just keep getting in my way, and I don't fucking like it. So that's why I sent Silva after you, and that's why I had Silva kill M, because I saw how much you were broken after Vesper died, and after Vesper killed herself after what happened. So I knew that that was the best way to get to you, and now you're here,
This
and
is
now
a
you're
re-
not going to get in my way again.
It's just a really convoluted plot twist when you really like talk about it.
And that's the thing. It's also unnecessary. It's a step too far. You
Doesn't
Yeah, and
don't
what
add
you
need to go that
anything.
far.
Doesn't
And
add
what-
anything.
and what you just described, Tony, is that's fine. It's like
Yeah.
that would still work, but that's what I mean. It's the overall problem of the direction that they felt they needed to go overall with this franchise, where it all has to mean something.
Yeah, it's that stoicism that I'm just so over.
And I appreciate, because I don't want to just be like, just give me fucking stupid shit, dude. Like, I'm not trying to say that. It's, I hate comparing it to the Mission Impossibles, but it's a little apt. Like they have been so elegant about deepening gently the series as it's gone by. Like it kind of started in 3 with him, hey, I'm getting married, and all that shit. But then, 4 is him like, oh, he had to leave her. She comes back at the end. The team is a little tighter. And then in the next one, they have to, go rogue again. But then it sets up a new villain. And then in Fallout, everything kind of comes together, but not in a way of like, all of a sudden, the guy from Rogue Nation is like, yeah, man, I was there since the beginning. I created the knock list or whatever the fuck. Like, no, he just wants revenge because he thwarted his fucking plans.
Yeah.
And now he's going after his ex-girlfriend, his ex-wife.
Exactly.
I literally watched Fallout the following night after Spectre because I felt like I had not gotten my fill of action and adventure out of Spectre, and
romance and danger,
and I got
depth.
so much more enjoyment out of watching Fallout than I did out of Spectre. It says a lot.
I mean, Fallout is a fantastic movie.
It was fun.
Well, that series just keeps getting better.
It really
does. Like,
it really
how,
does.
other than it's, they just know what they're doing.
It become and I agree with you, Rick, because in their pursuit to have every movie mean something, they kind of end up shooting themselves in the foot, because if you, at that point, you're 3 movies in with this Craig character, with this Craig version of Bond. You don't need to delve that deep to find gravitas in what Blofeld's trying to do. It's not that hard to make Blofeld a character that has been aware, that has been following Bond since the events of Casino Royale, and he's just like, you know what, I've had fucking enough with you.
Yeah.
I thought Skyfall did a good job of like balancing the two things, because I think that the deeper meaning was trying to attach was macro to the franchise itself, and I thought that was an appropriate um way to explore it. But then you take it a step too far, and it's like, okay, it's not this macro meaning, it's now this very 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 personal meaning, where it's like literally a cockfight between these two dudes, when it's like, but there's supposed to be like worldwide stakes here, and this kind of really undercuts that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just me. So John, in our discussion, when we were getting this episode ready, you mentioned how you had some misgivings about the misuse of the cast here. So why don't you talk us through some of your issues and see where we all stand? Get that very interesting discussion going.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of I just remembered feeling that way initially after I'd seen the movie in theaters, and I hadn't seen the movie since. So I just remember feeling like Monica Bellucci, totally missed opportunity. That was something that was a glaring problem to me.
Agree with you there.
Um, but again, I felt like I was saying earlier, that was because from a story perspective, I noticed that there was kind of something wrong about when Leia Sadu enters, because when she enters, the whole reason that he's there is because he was there to kill her father, and then he gets information out of her dad, and he tells him where to find her, or that that he'll she'll lead him to the L'American, and that guy is going to be able to connect him with Spectre. But like, why can't Monica Bellucci do that? Because her character was married to a guy who was directly in Spectre, and she resents Bond for killing him. When he encounters her, she says, why did you do this? I was respected, and now you've completely thrown everything off, and now people want to kill me. But she's waiting to die. She was waiting to die when those assassins were there, when Bond arrived and shot them.
Yeah.
She was just waiting. And so he extracts information out of her, leaves her, and then goes and pursues and finds where they're meeting, in the Spectre meeting. And it's like, why wasn't she a valuable enough lead for you to use the same way you use Leia Sadu's character? Because as far as how connected her father was with Spectre, it seems like he was just like a regular, head at the table, just another guy in a suit. What?
I'm gonna disagree with you on that point in terms of Mr. White's involvement, because remember, he's been involved in the financial side. If I'm kind of reading between the lines of Quantum all the way through the formation of Spectre, so and it's one of those things
Quantum
where,
being a subsidiary of Spectre.
which that's right, it's a subsidiary, not a fucking not the precursor, which would have made more sense, but whatever. But you are absolutely right. But either way, he's been involved with the organization for as long as we are aware of it in the Bond timeline. So and he's one of the money men. Money men, as we know in a lot of these movies, have all the info. They know a lot of the secrets.
Okay. I'm just saying, if you want to value Leia Sadu's character as like a tactical advantage, just from like a, an intelligence perspective, right?
Yeah.
Why is she more valuable as someone connected to someone in Spectre than Monica Bellucci, who's someone who's directly related and a part of the business that's being run? When Leia Sadu, remember her dad says to him, "Oh, she's good at hiding. She's hidden away. She's really good at hiding." She's not good at hiding, because she got a fucking degree in psychiatry and works at a fucking like high cost day spa in like Switzerland or something, right?
Once again, a continuing thing of
Yeah.
Bond and a psychiatrist.
But it doesn't make any sense because you see, if she wanted to go into hiding, she wouldn't be hiding in somewhere so high profile and as discreet and tucked away as it seems. It's like, nah, that's like hiding in the open. She should be living on a fucking farm milking goats.
That would have been great.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been more realistic,
Bond
and I would have
stepping in
believed that.
Bond stepping in
And
shit.
and there I do agree with you, because I think that I actually really like Leia Sedu's character, and I think that she works well in the story. But again, it's emblematic of this movie. They overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
It's definitely overcomplicated. It's a double
Exactly.
beat when he
Exactly.
gets there. It's like, wait, you're running into someone who is directly related to
Yeah.
this guy who was Inspector. We
Yeah.
just went through this in the
Yeah.
fucking prologue of the
For
movie.
sure. No, for sure. And
So
my whole thing is that I think that I do want more of Monica Bellucci in that movie. Me personally, I thought it would have been really fucking great if in some way you find out that she's kind of whatchamacallit, that Blofeld's actually kind of used her as a lure, almost in the kind of almost play like a Fiona Volpe callback to Thunderball, which would have been really cool. And that she is actually the new head of she's the new member of Spectre now that her husband has died.
She ran things instead
Yeah.
of the husband.
anything would have
Exactly.
been more interesting. She seemed to really not.
I
want any
actually like
part of
that
it.
take. I like that take, Tony, because actually is
Yeah.
a big tradition in Bond stuff where it's
Yeah.
like the actual bad female henchman
Yeah,
kind of thing.
for
Mhm.
sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
I don't mind Leah Sedoz. I actually liked her a little bit more in this time. Maybe I was just paying attention because of
Yeah.
anticipating this talk.
Yeah.
Um,
By the
but-
way, I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to just kind of briefly say, I do like the casting in this movie coming in a second time. And then when I sort of mentioned my contention with it prior to seeing the movie, I really didn't have a strong memory of it, but it's not just me rallying for Monica Bellucci to have a bigger part. It's, I felt like it was just really story wise and character development wise. I was like, this is not my thing. But
yeah, I
I'm
was
sorry, Rick.
I was just
Perfectly
thinking,
valid.
I'm like, why get
Perfectly
her if she's
valid.
just in that moment? And it's
It
like,
just
well,
seemed like a
because spare
waste.
no expense to get anyone to put asses in seats.
For sure.
But in terms of Leah Sado, because it's that thing. It's like why isn't she milking? Yeah, like you say, milking goats.
Yeah,
because
she
you
should be
need to
off the
because you
grid.
need to have a big fucking exotic place. And my thing is like, why do they kidnap her? Just blow her head off. Like if it's kind of like tying up loose ends, which I assume is what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
When Spectre, is led by Dave Bautista as what's his name? Hinks? What the
Hinks,
fuck is
yeah.
that kind of a name for a henchman? Hinks? I'm going to call him Bruiser. Like, fuck it,
He had a great presence, though, right? Wasn't
well,
he? good?
Dave
Oh, he's
Bautista,
awesome.
we could go off on a tangent on him, how he has fucking like stealthily become like one of the coolest, like big muscle bound dudes.
Absolutely.
Such a good actor, and he keeps
Yeah.
working with the best people.
He has ambition, and he's gonna get far.
Yeah.
But
He's
anyway,
gone far since this. This was literally the year after Guardians.
right. And with this, anyway, like in that scene, like they get her in the car to kidnap her because Bond tracked her down to find out about Le Medican, and he's
Mhm.
kind of made a promise to Mr. White, who, as we mentioned, has poison, and he kills himself. And all for Bond to just try and figure out what the fuck is this, who is who's the wizard behind the curtains and all that stuff. And they kidnap her, but I'm like, but why are they kidnapping her? Or do they want to know where American is? What do they want to know what Mr. White is up to? I don't think they ever mention like what the hell their motive is, because I assume like, well, if you're just tying up loose ends, just kill her, just shoot her in the fucking head.
And Rick, just to clarify, although that's actually most likely strengthens your point. There is a shot where Hanks, Dave Bautista, shows up, and Mr. White's already dead. So the whole
Right.
reason he's there is to kill Mr. White. So if the next logical step is kill his daughter, you're right. Just kill her.
Yeah, why are you kidnapping her?
Yeah.
But other than to Bond to get in a bloated action scene where he's in a plane,
which is kind of cool,
I guess. But it's also like, why? I guess he had no other vehicle. But I think that ties into a little bit of that identity thing of like, is this Roger Moore again? Like, are we still doing this shit even though we want to win Best Picture clearly? You know, with all of the fucking depth and drama.
Yeah.
You know,
it was this lack of balance. They wanted to make a fun movie, but they wanted to make a drama.
You know, and it's not like all those things are incongruent. It's just the way ends up being executed is incongruent.
Yeah.
Because Sam Mendes, in my personal opinion, is a very overrated director because he tries too hard, in my opinion.
Well, you know what, Rick? It's funny that you say that because when we were having a discussion for this episode, your contention was that you felt the labor in this movie, that you kind of felt it was trying too hard. So why don't you, since you've brought it up, why don't you take the point on that? And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
I just think he tries too hard.
And there you have it. Our next episode now.
No, it's a thing I've had with Sam Mendes for a while now. Not to go on too long about it. I appreciate the fact that he really does try to think visually, but he's unique in like him above all others that I've ever seen from a director. It's like he thinks too much on like, this shot has to be a masterpiece, and this moment has to be fucking deep. And I'm just like, just fucking direct. Just fucking let the fucking movie breathe. Like, stop fucking strangling it with your need for it to be important. And it's a thing I've had with all of his work, including the highly overrated Road to Perdition. Fuck you all, come at me. And I think
that movie. I'll defend.
Come at me. It's a fucking
whoa, sir.
It's
I don't know you like that.
It's a self-important, boring movie, and with miscasting. Yeah,
listener, I want you to know Rick does like movies. I promise.
And the graphic novel is 10 times better.
I'll agree with you there.
And I just feel like Sam Mendes is he brings his movies down. And I feel like that with overall, especially in this movie, where it's just too much of this, like we've said a million times, too much of this, you know, it's all got to mean something and it's all got to like have this big, giant, dramatic purpose as opposed to just letting it elegantly occur and letting
it's just pretentious.
That's exactly the word.
Yeah.
He's pretentious. Some of the action scenes are cool, but some of them are then, because of it needing to be kind of cool and slick and look great, ends up being boring. I think that happens later here. I remember laughing because I was like, what a dull action scene pumped up with so many explosions and music, where it's like a far away. He's like walking casually and just shooting people from afar.
Oh, when he's escaping Blofeld's lair. Yeah.
And he has no tension. And I think maybe it's supposed to be comedic, like look how cool he is. But
let's talk about this because
let's do it. Yeah.
Can we break this up? Can we just talk about this for a sec, Tony?
Absolutely.
There's no time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. We should talk about the movie.
My baby's crying.
Before you do, John, I do want to say, Rick, I agree with you. I'll actually add on to that. Okay. The other action scene where I felt that way was during that car chase scene, where it's like just the two of them. Nobody's out there at night.
Him and Hanks? Yeah,
him and Hanks. And it gets broken up to like, hey, let's have this bit of exposition. And then, let's also have this like gag with the guy in front who's going too slow and he's honking and he's got the airbag and the whole yada, yada, yada. And then he sinks it. And it's like, that's where I turned off for the movie.
The comedy beat with the airbag was a cheap shot. And did not fit in.
Cheap.
It's a big tonal, like weird move where the rest of the movie is, it's incongruent with everything that Sam Mendes was. That wouldn't fit in Skyfall. So why is it here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Because they got marketing feedback saying, "How come these movies aren't funny anymore?"
And
Totally.
the fucked up thing is that I quite like Sam Mendes. I actually love his camera work in a lot of his movies, but I do think that he does sometimes overstep it and gets pretentious with others. So I'm probably more positive than Rick. And that's the thing. I like Skyfall because I felt that, okay, you know what? This is a cool action moment. Why not set it up with a cool action shot? And there were other things going on that, even if like maybe sometimes the composition was a little too distracting, like there was something else going on. Spectre, a lot of the times, the setup of these shots, that's all it had going for it, and it just feels empty a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also something that in the action scene that Rick's mentioning
Yes, please.
is like it's egregious, but it unravels out of this lack of suspense that's built up out of, the scene we just come out of where he escapes the torture device that he's been bound in for like, I don't know, 3 hours, right? He escapes. He narrowly
I
escapes.
forgot about that, and I just watched it.
But also, they
damn
put he pokes those things into his nerves and shit to fuck with his brain, to fuck with his synapse, so he won't be able to recognize her face. He has face blindness. He's talking a lot of shit, and you're like, oh no, don't let that go in your body.
Face blindness. It's like out of Arrested Development. Like, what
It's
is
ridiculous. You won't be able to recognize her face. I'm like, will he be able to recognize shapes? How does that work?
Like,
he didn't
he's
elaborate.
like he sees in polygons now. Like, oh, like,
I would love that. Yeah, but I was hoping for that too, because the things go in and he goes, and you're like, did you get fucked up? And then there's that moment where he gets it again, and he's like, whoa, mama, and you're like, you got it, didn't you? You're fucking got stupid ass face blindness now. Then he throws his watch, the place blows up, he and her run out. He totally just like hooks his way out of the chair. It doesn't make any fucking sense. He literally breaks the bind with his strength, his Hulk strength.
There's only one actor that does that, and it's Arnold. And it's stupid for Bond to do that.
He runs, right? They get out. We exit into the open, right? And then we enter the scene you're talking about. And then there's that brief moment where he's like, he's walking. It's just like headshot, 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 headshot. And he's like so bored. And then he steps away. They get cover. There's an explosion that goes off, and he looks at her like very like stern. And I'm like, what is this supposed to mean? Are you checking to see if you can see her face? And then I read nothing out of his reaction. Her reaction. We got back to him, and he's like, okay. And he goes back and keeps shooting. Shoots, shoot. Then they start walking, shoot. Keeps getting headshots. Then he shoots just one guy standing at the peak where the helipad is. Headshot. Right. And then it's like a long walk for them to get past all the bodies. They get up the stairs, and he's like, let's go home. And they look. And then in that single two shot is when we see the layers start to explode in the background, right? Yeah. But it doesn't just like start blowing up and then it's just no. It does this like roundabout thing through the back of the facility, like it goes around it and then explodes up through the middle. Yeah. And I was watching it, and it was weird because when he goes like, let's go home, there's that moment where the thing explodes and they look, and you're like, oh, and it starts exploding more, and you're like, oh, it's really opening. It's a huge explosion. And I'm like, one shot? Fuck you. Like, how do you not have at least 7 cameras running on that fucking explosion? Like, it seemed almost irresponsible. And also just coming off the heels of watching GoldenEye, I was just like, the coverage in this movie is abysmal. Like,
because he wants it to be like, well, look at that one.
I know. It's like, look at just like, we're going to just let this moment live. Like, it's just that one take. Isn't that so precious? And I'm just like, fuck you. I can't even see what's happening, because you see those charges, the guy who did the detonation on that, he had it simulated for like this whole, like, the charges are going to go off around the facility and then they're snake up and come up through the middle. And you know what? There's no aerial shot to pay that off.
That would have been a perfect moment for that. One of those.
And it takes place inside of a giant crater. Why is there no shot of that?
Facts. All facts.
There's no shot. Like, that again, the
and
lack
talk about
of
like missing an opportunity for fun. Like he's got polygon face blindness.
I wanted him to be face blind. It would have been so much more exciting.
Well, it's like, how do you not now miss the opportunity to have a fun, not stupid, like
Yeah.
where she's his eyes.
Oh, that would have been so exciting.
To the
too. I
left,
was really,
bam,
yeah,
dim, and they're really having to cover in a,
Yeah.
yeah.
like think of like in fucking True Lies when he gets like the fucking, and I know that's
Yeah.
more a comedy.
No, but
Yeah.
that's
no,
a good,
nonetheless,
No,
like
it's a good
no
point.
missed opportunity. It's like he gets tortured and he gets the truth serum, which makes him all fucking woozy.
yeah.
And so when he's taking bad guys out, he's just like,
yeah.
and it's funny because they're living up to like the premise of like this guy is unstoppable, but he's like doing it while like
It builds suspense, and even if it is humorous, it still builds suspense, and that's a dramatic device that's missing from this movie because everything is just underscored by the fact that like, oh, James Bond is strong; he can just get out of the thing. No,
sure.
he can just headshot all these guys and walk up the stairs. That's okay.
That would have been great if it's her like, like 30 meters up, like letting him know as he's like adjusting.
Yeah,
and now
you're
bonding the characters. I think they do something like that in Rogue Nation, even though Cruz isn't.
Yeah.
Instead,
like, we get this like empty stare.
Yeah, she doesn't like have a gun in Rogue Nation, so she's like behind him, but letting him know like to the like that kind of thing, and it's that bonds your two leads.
Yeah, well,
no pun intended. I mean,
hey, I'm out. Good night, everybody.
He's out. And the fucked up thing is like that would have been the perfect way to actually get these two in a better emotional state, because
that's when they make love after that.
I mean, I had no problem. I mean, look, I had no problem with them with the way that it happened in the train.
You didn't think the edit was weird because it was like they have a big fight on the train, which is clearly a big let's top the fight in From Russia with Love, and
they murdered Batista.
Kind of, but he seems like he could make it. It's just kegs, and he just gets pulled out.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
But then they cut it. They're like, you okay or something? And then immediately cuts to like real hound dog sex, like tearing each other's clothes off. And I'm like, I don't know if that fits. I guess it seemed like it would be more tender.
The funny thing is, a friend of mine who works at my local comic book store. I threw that out to him. Like, that was when the movie first came out. And he was like, "Nah, man, that literally happened to me when it's like we're in a life threatening situation. We get out of it, and we're like, you wanna, and it happens. So it's like I guess a survival rush of some kind. Where
I guess the edit was weird for me then. Maybe the edit was just
I can empathize with that. It's the comedic beat because it is a comedic beat because it's cathartic and it's sensible, but it's also the fantasy of James Bond at work. That's a little too much a stretch outside of what's supposed to be the grounded dramatic tension that we're trying to maintain throughout the film. So it seems out of place because you're just like, isn't that supposed to happen off camera, Mr. Mendez? Isn't that more tasteful that we just know that it happened? We just dissolved the next morning. Like he just is like, yeah, and the producers need this here, so they just fit in it.
So John, please tell me how you feel about Sam Mendes. Just kidding.
I mean, I don't think I have as much
visceral.
I think he's a good visual director, but I'm not always so enthralled by all of his stories. Like, I think Road to Perdition is a good movie. Yeah. It's a good drama. I think Skyfall is up its own ass, though.
Well, which we'll get to when we get to the Skyfall.
Yeah. But even 1917, I felt like is bloated, but it's still a good visual experience, and Revolutionary Road is a good drama. But
I think we can all agree that's a big thing with Spectre. It's bloated.
Yeah, it's very bloated, and unnecessarily so. It's a continued issue with it. It needs to get overcomplicated. Like that moment in after the torture where where she's like, "I love you," like that is so not earned. Comes out of nowhere. It makes it's so stupid. But if you had just said something along the lines of "Stay with me," that would have worked fine. It would have had a nice emotional punch. You'd have gotten me.
I like you.
Like I swiped right on Tinder, that sort of thing. But it's like something like "Stay with me," like a very sincere, like "Stay with me," because she doesn't want to lose this person. Like that's something
because he's her ride.
Yes, she's her ride.
Don't die. You're my ride.
So I'm gonna try a third time to fucking get this point across. But it was too much. It would have been a nice moment where you're starting to realize that they understand that they are caring about each other more than just like, hey, we just met, whatever. It would have been the start of something really nice that would have followed through the end. And then you could like in my head canon, I would have loved to seen something like they're waiting for him outside. He literally has like a vehicle of some kind crash through the front, blows the fuck up. You knock out like 5 or 6 guys or whatever. Rick, I think your point you made was very astute. He's still like fucked up from the torture, so she's like shooting, he's kind of can't really see, and then she's kind of like, no, to your right, to your left, and like helping him get through to the helicopter. At which point you have a fantastic, just like John suggests, a fantastic aerial shot of the explosion happening instead of that really nice looking but ultimately really boring coverage of that.
It's like they had drones.
Yeah.
But and they use drones for some of their aerial stuff, and there is aerial photography, but for whatever reason there's this neglect to get like those monumental helicopter style aerial shots from the original James Bond movies, and they've been a trademark of all of the movies. So I was just like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
One of my favorite things about Skyfall, it has some really great aerial shots, that probably some of the best aerial shots in the Craig era. So
I don't know, just a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Can we talk?
I don't really get the aerial shot criticism, but what do I know?
Yeah, you don't have any real perspective. Fuck you. Could we talk about more like the technical stuff instead of the story? Because I want to talk about like the opening credits real quick.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the gadgets? Can
we talk about the shoes?
Let's talk about the opening credits and say we talk about the shoes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just mention really quick that like I noticed in this one, yeah, Rick, you mentioned that they brought in like the ladies and everything, and they're like, oh, women, we're gonna actually use real human bodies for using the effects.
Which was the tradition.
Yeah, and it was like it was a throwback. But then I noticed that like they used faces as well, and they didn't bother obscuring James Bond's face, so he was like very prominently featured, which was distracting. And then they did like these like really high def images of like an octopus, and it looked so fucking cartoony. It was distracting.
Reminding me of the opening of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Fincher one.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Fincher one kind of uses that.
Not in a bad way. No, I just mean like the I think because the octopus tentacles were black, and it reminded me of the oil and electronic cords in Girl with the Dragon Tattoos.
Yeah, that had more purpose. This was just like, all right, do an octopus.
I get it. I don't know if I agree. I get it that it's just do an octopus.
Do a fucking cartoony octopus. I want to see its eyes. I want to see the tentacles wagging around.
Kids want to see tentacles.
And they're big in Japan.
They love tentacles.
They love them. They make
because I kind of got the point. If anything, the credits do serve to kind of establish what the movie's going to be about, because it's like showing through shards of glass or whatever.
There is no octopus in this movie.
Shut up. It's the emblem of Spectre.
Baiting me.
There is no octopus named Spectre in this fucking movie that Bond fights.
I would have loved if Blofeld just like goes off his rocker. Like I would have loved if at some point
he turned into the octopus.
You know what I was really missing from Blofeld? Maybe I can add this to the whole story discussion. Like I liked Christoph Waltz's Blofeld, but something that really was missing character-wise, I felt, was like he just captures James Bond. He's like, okay, I think I'm going to torture you and then kill you, and I'm gonna Hans Landa this performance and call it a day.
I don't agree with that. Everyone says that, and I don't think he really is, because Hans Landa was very gleeful.
I know, but that's
much more.
That's something that to me is kind of missing, and like I don't want to compare him to Donald Pleasance or Telly Savalas. Or, I don't like comparing performances, but when I think in terms of like the interpretation, the idea that you're going to use this actor and you're going to have this version, they have this deep relationship. Like I was missing that menacing hospitality that's offered by so many Bond villains, where like he has Bond in his clutches, and there is no escape. So there's no need to bind him. Just let's have a conversation, have some wine, let's talk. And I kind of wanted them to have a little more like interplay before getting him strapped in for this torture, you know? But then they play it all out in that one scene. It's fine. But I was so bored out of my fucking mind.
You don't get the little joys. Like exactly it. That's exactly it. You know, it's like, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Rick, you're right. You don't get those little moments of, oh, look, there's a little like those moments like Doctor No.
Right. Look at my art collection, Mr. Bond. Don't you appreciate it?
Yeah.
I took it from 008 when I had his, family murdered and burned to the ground. Like fucking with him. Shit like that.
Little bit.
He should have tried to win him over and been like, you've been a real thorn in my side since I was a boy. But you know what I realized? You're persistent.
Yeah.
You really succeed where others fail. You don't give a flying fuck. And I need someone like you to help me with my organization.
I like that too.
And think about it. Like MI6 has not been doing you any favors. You go out here, you find out about SPECTRE, and what do they do? They're going to hand themselves right over to me, and I'm going to run MI6.
Yeah.
So what difference does it really make?
And that opens up like, what is Bond? What do you really stand for, Bond?
Yeah. And that's the thing. He just wants the girl to leave.
But you can't do any of that because Blofeld is his stepbrother who hates him for being loved more.
But the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So if Blofeld, if his ultimate goal is to control the world, right? Is that what Blofeld wants?
In order to kill James.
Well, that's the most ridiculous shit. I don't.
How about this? How about this? Maybe, and then maybe this is how you could have made that brother twist work, and it leads to John where you're going, where it's like, I want you to join me, where it's like and it could make it a thing. It's like, you know what? I could never understand why Father preferred you over me, and I've watched you all this time, and now I understand, and I get it. So this is why, and I want you to join me, and it could add this really creepy layer to Blofeld's like obsession with Bond. It's like,
yeah, if he's so obsessed, then like why not try and get him to like side with you? Nothing else has worked. You tried to kill him so many fucking times, and then if he won't fold over, then torture him. Then that's earned. Then I understand
for sure. But like you could have also had that be an opportunity for like where that like have an idea where that hatred almost becomes like almost like a lust, almost like a lustful obsession.
I mean, he's all over Bond.
Yeah, that would have been great. That could have worked. Make that a little bit more overt. Or something like that. But this movie, it's again emblematic of this movie's issue where it overcomplicates things that doesn't need to be overcomplicated. But one thing I'm picking up while we're talking about this discussion, where there could have had a little bit more oomph. It's just like, nah, we'll just leave it. We'll just take it for granted that we're doing a Bond movie. It's like,
well, for a movie that was on the heels of something that was so story centric, it's a weak follow up, and a confused one.
Agreed.
I want to talk a little more. Can we talk more again, like just about like the technical stuff? Like,
I'm asking permission.
Yeah, okay. I want to talk about the gadgets real quick.
Actually, we'll touch on that because I actually think it's probably going to fall under my biggest issue with the movie, which is the fact that it's a movie that is in a movie in it with an identity crisis. I might have mentioned early in the episode that Quantum of Solace is my least favorite of the Craig films because it's almost ashamed of being a Bond movie, and this movie is unabashedly a Bond movie, but it doesn't know what kind of Bond movie it wants to be. And I think the gadgets do play a big part of that. So John, why don't you? We'll start with you, John, since you're going to talk about these gadgets. Let's go, man.
Oh, well, that's funny that you want to, connect it to the identity crisis point that you're making, because I had noticed that do you remember when Q is giving him his gadgets, he gives him the smart blood.
Yeah.
And the smart blood doesn't activate for 48 hours, so then Bond uses that opportunity to fall off the grid and go and travel and pursue his target.
Just to be clear, Q makes that shit up. So it's like, it's gonna take 24, and Bond kind of looks at him like, I'm gonna need a little more time than that.
Yeah,
like,
he gives him
48
time.
hours. So
yeah, it gives him time to get out of town and stuff. But
do they ever utilize that really? Like, does fucking Andrew Scott ever like, I want to know where the fuck Bond, like,
yeah. There's literally a moment where he says, I want to know where he is immediately, and they give him his position or whatever. But
it's so underutilized.
It's extremely underutilized. I also want to point out that like the whole cyber aspect of the movie is really convoluted as well. That while the smart blood is in this, they did the same fucking thing in Casino Royale. It's so stupid. They give him a fucking microchip tracker in Casino Royale, so it's just like, okay, so it's just the same thing again. It's just the same fucking thing again. And the watch that explodes. I mean, this is not a lot of creativity, the gadgets this time around.
I mean, and yeah, and that's I agree with that.
They teased us with the guns in the car, and they didn't even fire because they weren't loaded, which didn't make sense, because why would the car be ready to pick up for 009 and not have the ammunition loaded? And someone would have stopped that.
Absolutely agree. Like, that's a moment where I'm like, you know what? Fuck the joke. Give me the cool explosion.
Yeah, it just literally robbed you of an opportunity to have something enjoyable and just like indulgent from the franchise. And it was like, to what end? I don't know. It wasn't fun. It was funny for a brief moment because it's like, hey, you don't have the bullets, but I'm like, yeah, but then I don't get to see you shoot anybody now. Thanks. Like, that kind of sucks.
The only thing I can assume is that because it's only Batista chasing him, so it's one car, so if he has the gun. So I'm like, well, then make it multiple cars, and he takes the first car out with the guns. Right. And he takes the second car out with, I don't know, fucking metal pikes that he launches out of the back, and all their tires explode, and it flips and lands in a fucking cafe and explodes. And then the last car is Batista, and that's when he lights it on fire. Like,
which more exciting than what we got.
Which, for all its flaws, the car chase in Tomorrow Never Dies is fantastic for that very reason. It knows how to use the gadgets of its car. It has some really inventive moments as it's being chased. The car looks ugly as sin.
Are you talking about the Beamer that's like self-driving and he's got the touchpad and he's in the back of the thing?
Yeah.
So goofy.
Yeah, it's goofy as fuck.
No, that was the kind of good part, because you see Brosnan actually having fun. He's like,
yeah.
It
is fun, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I totally agree with you. And that's the thing. It's like it was fun, but yet even like it didn't take away from like the stakes of the movie up until that point. What little stakes there were in Tomorrow Never Dies. Whereas this one, I was actually, the car chase was a pivotal moment for me, because I was actually kind of into the movie for 45 minutes. I was like, okay, this isn't quite as, whip snap punchy as Skyfall, but I'm into it. I could fuck with a slow burn kind of Bond. You're coming off this. Actually, I actually really enjoy the scene with the meeting and the long table. And it's kind of like, it's almost unsettling, but then you go into this car chase and you automatically, you have these really silly moments like, oh, we forgot to load the car. Whoopsie. It's like, it doesn't work. We already knew that it was supposed to go, like, it was supposed to be ready for a different 00 agent to pick it up. So why the fuck would it not load? Like,
they also have that stupid ambiance option in the car that throws on like a Wagner tune or something that 009 had preloaded as like a preference, and he shuts it off really quick.
I thought it was a Frank Sinatra.
Was it Sinatra?
Sinatra, yeah.
Sinatra,
oh, okay. Yeah. Whoops, I forgot. So it's that again, an out of place comedic beat, like
totally out of place.
In a movie that tries to take itself seriously. And let me also point out the whole concept of like this new like C, the new guy that's butting in to shut down and capsize the 00 department within MI6 and control MI6, right? That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna control it. Is that it?
Well, yeah, they have access.
Moriarty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew Scott. He played Moriarty in Sherlock, and he's playing a guy named I don't know. Bond calls him C.
Yeah.
Max Denby as the character's name, I think.
Yeah, sure. You're right.
Yeah.
He keeps saying like at midnight our system's gonna go online, and then you guys are gonna be obsolete. And I kept thinking to myself like, software. What does the software do? And the software, they never talk about what the software does, do they?
Yeah, it's gonna control. It's gonna give like Spectre access to all the information, and therefore be able to like anticipate and counter any action against them.
But why do you need software to do that? Don't you already have software to run your computers? Like, I mean, it's like it's literally just a contractual handoff. It should have just been like by midnight, the handoff will be done, and then it'll be handed over to this corporate.
Spectre will control all our info.
Yeah, it didn't need to be some sort of Skynet's going to go online. Like they tried to build up all that suspense, and I'm like, it's just good. You guys are just going to have their files. Like it's not a big deal. Like your software does nothing. It's a file. It's like filing software. It's so like arbitrary. Like they try to build it up that it's like 10 seconds to midnight, and you're just like, but it's just, you can be like, the deal is going to be made. It doesn't need to be this. There's nothing cyber warfare about it that really is, that matters. That's like, oh, we need the code. We gotta. It's like Q's just gonna hack away and it'll be done, and we just shut it down.
The only thing that the only reason I'm kind of like, I actually didn't mind it is because up until that point, it's a thorn in M's side, but this would have been a nice place to kind of explore his character arc a little bit, where it's like, my duty is to stick by Queen and country, but they're also doing something that I fundamentally disagree with. And the tension of that last act for me, and again, I will be the first to admit that it's undercooked, but the tension for me was like, oh shit, this isn't what my country wants. This is what Spectre wants, and we got to stop this shit no matter what. So it kind of adds this thing where it's like, holy shit, like not only do I get to make a stand for something I believe in, there's an urgency to it because it's from a truly nefarious actor here. So that to me was interesting. I think that it was undercooked by some of the other things that were going on in the last act, but that for me was the intention, and I liked the intention. I wasn't so in love with the execution. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
You just had nothing invested in the software
as
a device.
I don't really care. It's a MacGuffin. I don't care
either, but yeah.
Well, like, I mean, but a MacGuffin, like, for example, I was watching Fallout, and, like, the MacGuffin was the detonator for these nuclear devices, and they have to get the thing to shut it down. So it builds all this tension and suspense into getting the thing.
If I can make another Mission Impossible comparison.
You want to just talk about Fallout?
Can we talk about Fallout?
No. Mission Impossible 3... you don't know at any point what is the rabbit's foot. You never know what it is, but you're still invested in making sure that Ethan Hunt gets his hands on the rabbit foot, because they did such a good job in that movie setting the stakes and what it means to the villain, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Owen Davian, I think it is. That's the thing. At no point do you actually know what is the rabbit's foot, but you don't care while you're watching the movie. It's.
I know what it is.
What is it? What is the rabbit's
foot? It gives
foot?
the coordinates to the location of the briefcase that has Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Oh my God.
You know, Rick, I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Whatever. I'll eat this big Kahuna burger. So yeah, the intro essentially of the classic for Bond fans that know all of them, you know, the boardroom, the Spectre boardroom, essentially, that they spoofed, you know, in a million movies, most famously Austin Powers and stuff. You know, number 1, number 2, and all that shit. They don't do that, but that's essentially the classic setup, and they do their modern version of that here. where they're having a meeting about all these things going on in the world and all the horrors they're going to create. And then it ties into what happened in Mexico City, and that guy failed, so that guy has to die. But they do a weird thing where it's like, who will challenge his place on the seat on the council? And Dave Bautista just walks in, a muscle dude, and just like squeezes his eyes, kills him, and just sits down. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah, does he have any experience with foreign policy?
Does he know anybody?
Yeah, what's his
Does he have
background?
Connections, or does he just kill? Does he just beat people up?
He's just really strong. I voted for him.
Like,
Guys,
you know, it's another thing of.
He's gonna make Spectre great again. Believe me,
Oh,
he's gonna make Spectre
please.
great again.
It just got me a little angry hearing that. Like, it's another thing of like, why you're overwriting that. The guy failed. That's the scene you're doing. The guy failed. Blofeld's mad. He has to die for his failure. It's been done 1,000 times, but the only way they can think to do it new is to be like, this man failed. Does anyone challenge his seat? It's like fucking Thunderdome. Like, what? Like, did that guy know he was gonna be killed? He just stands there while Baptista gives him a big head hug. Like, it's just weird.
See, if the rest of the movie were tighter, I'd actually, because I'm actually fine with that whole sequence. I actually really fucking love that sequence. So you're right. It's a little flowerier than most moments in the Bond franchise that are similar, but I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the idea of, because I like the idea of like different emissaries, I guess, speaking in their native language. I like that because that automatically is a nice little toad, like, oh shit, this is a worldwide thing. I also just kind of enjoyed like listening to a Spanish actor doing some straight up Castilian Spanish, like while he's talking. Like it was cool. It was cool, and you know, as a Spaniard, that was a nice thing for me. So I had no problem with any of that. I had no problem with the very deliberate pacing of that moment. But again, it gets undermined because they keep doing that kind of deliberate pacing and that overwriting and that overcomplication throughout the rest of the movie. I love it in that sequence. Don't like it in the rest of the movie, and it completely undermines the power of it. John?
No.
That scene, like, literally just glazes. My eyes just glaze over. And then he runs. I just remember him, like, being like, I see you. And he, like,
Yeah,
turns
it's
and
like
looks at him.
odd. It's like, I get it. Like, okay, now is he angry, but it's almost like, right, James? And it's like, how is he not immediately just captured?
Yeah,
And
what?
then you have a scene where they meet and talk. It's
like-
like they have to bloat that out in order for it to be the big layer later.
Well, I mean that's where bringing back Monica Bellucci would have been a really great asset, where it's like she's the one who's actually taking over for her husband.
She should have let him in there. Yeah, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then she reveals like, and I brought you a gift, Ernesto,
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, like,
Yeah.
and he's like, James Bond, you know, and he's like, fuck, I've been betrayed, you know?
Yeah. Like the idea that he just lets James
in the classic Bond fashion. Fuck, I've been to a shame.
So it's my American Bond. Shit.
Bond was be played by Bruce Willis in this Spectre.
Oh God, please no.
No, please not. So
I told you it was in the kangaroo.
I don't understand
What
the
a
reference.
cop out.
Pulp Fiction. The Gold
Oh,
Watch.
but the bedside table. Right.
In the
There you
kangaroo.
go. So to wrap up our discussion part of this podcast, John, I think we both agree that one thing that this movie does right is that pre-credit sequence.
Oh man.
So let's talk about that awesome pre-credit sequence. We want to end on a positive note here, boys.
I think I like the pre-credit sequence in this one. Well, I don't like it as much as the Casino Royale one, but it's a close second.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I'm only comparing the Daniel Craig ones because I just don't. It's a different beast. You know, it's a different era. We'll have a lot more technology at our disposal now to do stunts and things. And, you know, what they like digitally matted James Bond's face onto the stunt guys that were actually on the helicopter that was barreling through the air.
Mm-hmm.
They digitally added all the extras in the mall in Mexico City for those sequences where the helicopters like over all those people. I think
There's
that's
a
all
lot of
CG.
stuff going on, and then interior of the helicopter, it's clearly either probably not rear screen projection, but
I think
overlaying it a green or blue screen.
Something I noticed really with this film is how strong the visual effects work is.
Yeah.
And especially in the opening, because it's so seamless, it's so good at not drawing attention to itself that you can just enjoy all the action, everything that's going on.
I do have a little bit of an interesting tidbit. So according to, let me see what my source is here. Because admittedly, according to the BBC.
QAnon, damn it.
Damn it. Wrong Q.
I found this fact on Parler. Whoops.
Which is shut the fuck down. So yeah, on the BBC, that parade, that the day of the Dia de los Muertos, for those of you that don't know, it is a Mexican holiday the day after, on the 1st of November, that is their commemoration of the dead. And
in Mexico.
It's a very, very, very important celebration in Mexico. Huge part of Mexican culture. There is no parade like that in of the type that they use for the opening, but they actually started one in 2016 as a result of that, of having filmed there, and as a result of that movie. So it's kind of an interesting drop about how Bond affects the real world, maybe not politics, but the real world culture. That I find very interesting. That it's like, holy shit, this massive Day of the Day parade. Let's do this. And I just thought that was very neat, especially as someone who's a big Bond fan, who's also Latino. I think that's pretty a neat thing to talk about. That parade though is fantastic. And Rick, I think you mentioned before we got started that you might have picked up some nods to.
I'm wondering. I haven't looked it up or confirmed it. Yeah. Whether because it starts with the pretentious "The dead are alive," as I mentioned before, and then it opens boom on a big giant. I assume either like a fucking fucking styrofoam or balloon. It doesn't look like a balloon, but a traditional kind of skeleton looking Day of the Dead shape. I don't know
what paper mache.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's huge, and I don't know what the art, what you would call that art. Forgive me for not knowing. The shape of that classic Day of the Dead skeleton we all see, and it has a top hat and a cigar sticking out of its mouth. And I don't know if anyone out there knows, can confirm it or something. I for a second said, like, are they homaging Teehee, who was the famous henchman in Live and Let Die, Roger Moore's first one?
I think you're
actually he's like the voodoo priest.
You're actually confusing him with Baron Samedi. Teehee is the henchman in Live and Let Die that's got the claw. Baron Samedi is the voodoo priest. I'm not sure what the proper term is, so I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. But he is the one.
You're right. You're right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So Baron Samedi.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned, because
he's actually based on I don't know how you pronounce this, Aloha of Haitian voodoo. So they desecrated an actual figure in voodoo and named a Bond henchman after him.
Oh, we can't wait to talk about the the problematic elements of Live and Let Die. Holy shit!
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. But yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned the allusion to Live and Let Die, because there was something about Sciarra, the guy who the villain who he's chasing. There was something about his attire, the white suit, the very red shirt, the black vest, and the white top hat, and the mask that he was wearing. There was something that gave me Live and Let Die vibes. Not exactly Baron Samedi, but Like if there was something about it, like he wouldn't feel out of place in in Dr. Kananga's gang in that movie. It's just like a
Yet I don't remember him having a top hat.
yeah. I don't. That's the thing. I'm not saying that it's necessarily like he's dressed like a character. It's just but there was something about that costume that's like this feels maybe not deliberate, not, but this is giving me vibes of that movie and that villain and that crew.
I think you're reading too far into it myself.
I mean, maybe, but here's the thing: is it really out of place for a Bond movie to self-reference one of its past films? I mean,
No, not at all. I mean, they do it in Die Another Fucking Day. She comes out of the water
all the time.
Yeah, she comes out of the water like Ursula Andress,
I mean,
and then they do it again in Casino Royale where he comes out of the water like Ursula Andress,
Like this time he's objectified.
Right, and that's okay.
He's scary when he comes out of the water.
What do you mean?
My immediate thoughts are,
get away from me!
Oh God, there's a shark on land! Run!
So, guys, that was an awesome discussion. Now we end every film discussion episode with a little game that we do where we pick 3 specific moments in this movie, in whatever movie, which is favorite original character, favorite Bond kill in the movie, and favorite one-liner. So we're gonna start with John on this one. So who is your favorite original character?
Fuck. I didn't really like any original character in this movie, but I will say that I really liked the guy that gave James Bond the enzyme protein shake at the day spa, because it was the only green thing on camera in the shot. Everything was black and white and gray all over. He introduced color. And I thought, and when I saw him, I thought to myself, bless you, precious angel. And then he left. So he's probably my favorite character in the movie.
He's in No Time to Die.
Is he?
No, I'm kidding.
He's making more shakes. Protein shake, Mr. Bond.
Mr. Bond, your shake.
So John, what's your favorite Bond kill in this movie?
I think when Batista bites it, it's pretty fun. It also reminded me of another movie, though. I can't pinpoint what it's on.
Oh God! I mean, how many movies has that happened where it's like Thai villain to thing and what? Blah!
When they cut to the close up of him and he goes shit, I was like, is that all you could think of saying? Say something memorable, not just shit. This is shit, and then it gets yanked out. It was fun when he or fuck, be more creative. Fuck. Yeah, I think that was the one that I liked the most. That or the guy the last henchman being shot on the helipad when he's exiting the lab. I thought that was pretty funny. It seemed just like impossible, and it was confusing at the same time because I was like, are your eyes okay? I guess they are.
He's aiming at the polygon heads.
Fantastic. And so, John, what's your favorite one-liner?
Oh, right. Hold on. Let me find.
Let me watch the movie again.
Yeah. Oh, right.
2.5 hours
I really loved when James Bond said, "No, stay," to some random scared person. Oh no, it was at the same fucking scene with the shake, and like he beats him up, and he's like gonna go pursue Batista, and he like fucking beats up both the security guards and doesn't like kill him. He just pushes the one guy back and he says, "No, stay," and puts him in his place. And then and it was something about his delivery that was like so good. It
was naturally funny.
It was like that's
because it comes out of like the situation and character, because it's like don't do that, like don't fuck with me.
I just let you live, don't fuck with me. It was like, good,
and I don't have time for your shit. Like I got
it was all that in that moment. It was all just percolating. It just worked.
It's like that Avengers moment when the kid, like, you can't take, son, just don't. It's that thing of like, look, we mean business and we don't have time for you. Like,
it was it was definitely the most naturally funny moment that I can recall in the movie.
Fantastic. So my favorite original character is actually Madeline Swan. Aside from some of the issues that we had, which I totally agree with, I actually really liked her character. I liked the chemistry that she had with with James Bond. Um, I think and I think Lea Seydoux did a good job with the unevenness of how the character was written. Um, I believed it more than I would if any other actor had done it. But I actually really dig her quite a bit. I don't disagree that maybe that where what's purpose she served in the story should have been served by Monica Bellucci, but I do think that she did a great job, and I really enjoy her that character very much. My favorite Bond kill, I agree with John. It's Batista. Um, my I the what I kind of went to was how um the villain in Mask of Zorro, how he goes out. When Diego de la Vega, he's kind of like at his last end. He's kind of like the villain has him dead to rights, and then he kind of cuts the horse carriage or whatever, and the horse and like the carriage like falls off the cliff, and it drags and drags the villain down. So that was one that reminded me. My favorite one liner is from the same scene that John referenced actually, but it's when he gets the enzyme chain. It's like, you know what? Just throw this down the toilet. Cut out the middleman. I fucking died. I thought that was great.
Why is that the best scene in the movie?
It's one of the most boring locations, but it's one of the best scenes.
It's one of the weirdest scenes, but
yeah,
for whatever reason, very interesting things happen. Also, he has a discussion with Q. Q shows up in the field to meet him.
yeah.
Why?
Because he's got 2 cats to feed, don't you know?
Well, he distracts him, and then they kidnap fucking Lea Seydoux literally right behind them. It's fucking weird.
It's very weird. So Rick, why don't you give us your favorite original character?
I don't have one.
And you know what? That's perfectly valid because
I guess I would say Lea Seydoux too for everything you said. Rewatching it, I did like her or appreciated her a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And what the character's supposed to function as, and I think she actually gives a good performance. I mean, like I understand what John's saying, and I see it, and I want to say like it's not. I don't disagree, and I don't agree. It's a different movie, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely a different story that I'm imagining just based off of what
Right.
they put out there with Monica Bellucci's character. But I do feel like it's a redundancy just for even having Monica Bellucci there in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with the underutilization. Have her be a fucking but you know, you're already repeating all these other things. Why not? Because maybe they're thinking like, oh well, we already did that with Sophie Marceau in World Is Not Enough, you know, and it's like, well, fuck it, do it again. You know, you got Monica Bellucci. And
do it.
So yeah, I guess her, but not super enthusiastic about it.
Okay, that was all right, fantastic. That's fair. Sometimes these movies don't exactly
Sorry.
No apology necessary, because sometimes, you know, that's the thing about these movies. They've been around since 1962. Not every movie has.
I think the most fun character is Q. I think Ben Whishaw is clearly having a nice time, or not. Maybe he's not having a nice time. He's certainly making me feel like I'm having a nice time when he's on screen.
Perfectly fair.
He's so like mousy and eager, and you know, like it's, you know, it's cute. You know,
perfectly fair. Perfectly fair. So, what's your favorite Bond kill?
The one where he's got him at the end of the plane, and he pulls his chute. And he says, "Get off my plane."
That's literally what I thought too.
He's tied his head around a rope and then lets him go, which breaks his neck, and then releases him, and he goes flying out the back. It's very satisfying as a kill and a good line.
So what you're saying is that you don't have a favorite kill in this movie.
Oh, you're right. I was talking about Air Force One.
Oh man. So should we skip ahead to favorite one-liner, or what's your favorite one-liner, Rick?
Get off my plane. There's no good one-liner here. There's no good one-liner.
And
there's no Bond. There's no good Bond one-liner for all of like your little silly attempts at humor. You don't give Bond a moment. Like, is Craig against that? What's
You don't
going
have just
on?
like a favorite line though. Just
Like, I
one.
know we're overcompensating for, the internet not liking Die Another Day, but like, at least he says time to face gravity in another fucking kill, just like the one with Babe Baptista, where he pulls the chute of the guy and he gets pulled into the fucking engines of the plane.
Yeah.
So that's why that ending feels so familiar for Dave Bautista, is because it's been done 1,000 times, which is okay.
Which is fine.
You
So guys, this was an awesome discussion. Thank you guys for joining me.
I obviously.
The episode
We'll
is
start
over,
again.
Rick.
Sorry. I was just gonna say I just can't think of one. If someone could help me, I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Can I just point out a weird anecdote real quick before we end it?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
I just noticed while we were watching the movie, or when I was watching it this time around, we'd watched Goldeneye just before this, and Dane Judi Dench makes a point as M to say, we at MI6 try not to get our news from CNN. It's like a really funny line. And then now that M is dead, I noticed that M, played by Ray Fiennes, is watching CNN in one of the scenes, and
he's got a different take on it.
it's because Judi Dench is dead, and
there you go.
Fuck it. There's no continuity to these movies.
Well, why would there be continuity? He watches CNN, she doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great way to end it, John.
Great way to end
it. No problem.
So I think that about wraps it up. Rick made a point. There's no real one-liner to think of. You know what? I think you've made me come around to that, Rick. I did pick the line, with the shake and whatever, but you know what? It's not that good. It's not that funny, and that's.
I don't even remember what we were talking about, and we just talked about it.
But isn't it that way? Who knew? But yeah, you know what? All in all, it's again, just to tie back to what we talked about at the very beginning. Like, I love talking about these movies with you guys, even if it is a movie as meh as this. But the next episode, I think the next set of episodes, we're gonna be really, really into it. So we're shaking and stirring things up a little bit here, his name. Whereas before we would release one episode bi-weekly, we are going to be releasing 2 episodes bi-weekly now. And if you want to find out what the next set of episodes is, you're going to have to tune out for what our next episode is. His name will return with our discussion of the pre-credit title sequence, a staple of the Bond movie canon. And if you, at the end of that episode, you're gonna find out what the next set of episodes are. Guys, everybody, please stay safe out there, and remember, nobody does it better. Good night.